what is going on right now? Let's just look at our timeline for a second. If I go here to the application process, what I'm going to see is junior year starts here. Some of you are juniors, and this is where we are, for the junior year. You're about to head into AP season. Then there'll be an ACT or SAT for June. And we can talk about testing and timelines in a minute. But some of you guys are all the way over here. You are freshmen or sophomores, and you're really just wondering what it's all about. You're still in that open field, so don't really worry too much about, the timeline yet. There are things that you want to be addressing, and I will be talking about those, like good course selection, like growing your activities, like discovering your interests and trying to find a pathway to your major. But for now, our seniors are right here. They're checking their portals. A lot of them are on wait lists. When we start here, I'm going to bring up a horse race. This is a horse race. We do these every year with our students as they're approaching their, May 1st deadline. This student, I just pulled out of one of the many students that were in my Google Docs. And obviously the student applied to a lot of schools. The green ones are the ones that they currently were accepted to. And like all people, they want to, because the front runners are the schools that they want to go to the most. So this student particularly wants to go to UT the most, and then these are the ones right behind them. And the orange schools are currently wait lists. So the student is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wait lists. This is not uncommon. And I'll go back to that screen in a second. Back before COVID, it was kind of, surprising if a student was on more than 2 wait lists. They were like, oh, wow, that, you must really be right on the edge. Post-COVID, we see a lot of students hitting, I was talking to one of my students yesterday. He's like, I think I'm going to break 10 wait lists. Because, I told him the record was 10. I think it's more than 10, but he seemed like he wanted to break a record. So he's going to break a record for wait lists. But why is this? Because the college process has changed. Ever since COVID, when testing got pulled out, a lot of schools, SAT and ACT being mandatory, a lot of schools had to slow their process down if they were going to be, accurate and not accurate, but if they were taking the right amount of time to evaluate their students. So what they started to do is they started to pump the brakes. The way I've described it in the past is imagine, I actually saw it yesterday on the freeway when the cop car goes the cop car or the motorcycle goes like this and slows all the traffic down. That's what wait lists are. They're just slowing all the traffic down. And then the students are evaluated again at that stage because, for example, the UCs, if I asked a show of hands, how many people care about the UCs, probably a lot of hands would go up. Obviously, we're in a state with a very good state system. And it's a good price tag. So I know a lot of families think that way. Obviously a lot of families think, other schools, we'll talk about that, far away. Even a lot of schools, a lot of students these days are thinking about why can I talk? They think about international schools as well. But the UCs, for example, they will just give you easy numbers. They will wait list UCLA, which just came out last week. They'll wait list, say, 10,000 students, right? And so we have all of our blue trainers all calling, ask Abigail or Trishy or Laurel on a Monday morning. I got waitlisted. What do I do? What do I do? And the first thing that school is asking for is their first semester senior grades, which is why first semester senior grades are so important to everybody. A lot of students will try to rev up their course load first semester senior year to make themselves look extra muscular, but that can kind of push back on them if they don't land it like they expected. For example, students will go to, multivariable calculus or AP Physics 2 or AP Lit for some students or AP Econ and AP Gov. And that load becomes heavy for them. And then their first semester senior year, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter because I already submitted my application. But you're going to have to remember the colleges are going to circle back, usually in the early part of the next year, and then they're going to ask you for your senior grades if you were waitlisted. So the UCs are notorious for this. They waitlist an overabundance of students, kind of like an airline will, overbook something, and then they wait for some people not to show up. So say that 10,000 students, they all get something in their portal, which is after you submit an application, every school will send you a portal link, and then you can check your portals, and that's how you get status updates. but these students will have the opportunity to opt in or opt out, submit their grades, and then send a letter of continued interest. So those 10,000 students that we're using as a proxy group, there's a certain number of those students who didn't do well senior year. They're already going to be dropping a little bit off of the wait list. So the school's like, great, we didn't even do anything. We just cleared, 2,000 students because they didn't do as well as they did their junior year and their senior year. I know it gets stressful. I could already tell parents already like, like, but most students, can balance their senior year as long as they don't overwhelm themselves with their college applications at the same time. Then after that, the schools are waiting for you to send well, first of all, out of that 10,000, let me go back. Some students didn't even opt in. So out of 10,000 students, let's say 8,000 opted in. That means 2,000 didn't even opt in. The school didn't do anything, and they shed, 20% of their applicants right out of the gate. Then another 2,000 didn't do so well first semester senior year. So now that's 4,000 students shed. Then they ask for a letter of continued interest, which means an update about what's changed in your life or things you've been experiencing or new achievements, how your courses are going in your second semester. And that is the UCs, UCLA this year, allowing the students to do 7,000 characters, which is 3 pages. I almost feel like that's a mistake because they've never allowed students that much like runway to talk about themselves. So these students now, literally this week and next week, they're all scrambling to write their LOCIs, letters of continued interest, get all their stuff in. Then they're checking their portals because schools like UC Davis, if you get accepted off the wait list, you have 5 days to accept, or else you're off the wait list again. So the UCs are using these wait lists as a tool to reduce their applicant pool. This shouldn't make people nervous. What it should do is let you know that the game is longer than just submitting in November and you're done. One of the reasons why we tell our families, like, we have a lot of our junior families already signed up, heading towards the summer, and we're already doing town halls, and we're kind of alerting them that you very likely will be hitting wait lists. And even though we repeat this over and over and over, what happens when students get on wait list? They're like surprised by it. So we want to tell you guys it's normal. This is a normal process that you will see families going through. How many students get off the wait list? Depends on the school. The UCs have a pretty good turnover on the wait list. UC San Diego, UCI, UC Davis turn over quite a few. Some out-of-state schools like UW and UT, they pay attention to their in-state students first, and then they will start to kind of let the out-of-state students in off the wait list. UT Austin this year started doing something called Texas Apply, where students if their grades were good enough, they had auto acceptance, and that completely tipped over their admissions process. So every out-of-state student was deferred. Yeah, so there are always things every year that are, occurring that will kind of change the landscape. USC this year pretty much deferred almost all the students I can think of around first round. And then second round, a lot of our students are getting in off that. So that's essentially the state of admissions. I do want to just mention really quickly the testing issue that we're noticing. So this is our blue list. We'll go into this in more detail when we talk about our college list building. But if I do test mandatory, and when I start talking about testing, currently for the class of 2025, there's only 14 schools that are test mandatory. For the class of 2026, there's probably 4 more, and the year after, and we very well could see more more schools being added to this list before June. So last year, I think it was Yale, Brown, and UT Austin just came at the last minute. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened again this year. So these schools, as we will know, if you open them up and we look at the test mandatory, obviously we'll see that. I will also sometimes go here to admissions. Oops. And I will check what percent of students submitted scores if they were non-test optional. So we can say like, all right, this is obviously this is from last year. This is before they went test mandatory because this is the first year they are test mandatory. But UT Austin was accepting 83% of their students had taken a test. So that's a high percentage. If we go to Michigan, it's going to be lower. As we know, the UCs are test blind. So those uh, those schools won't even look at your test scores, even if you have perfect scores. They don't even want them, and I'll get more into that in a moment. But I would say the overall takeaways this year is that there is nothing very different from acceptances this year versus prior years. I would say I've seen a couple of kids sneak in to some of the UCs, like UC Santa Barbara. That school has always been tricky for South Bay students because the lifestyle seems to kind of be something that they're comfortable with. So a lot of students will kind of automatically check that. A lot of our students who live in the coast, they want to continue surfing, so it's a very hot spot. Happily saw a lot of students that I wasn't sure if they were going to make it, already squeeze in, even without a wait list. So we are seeing some good news there. Berkeley is still the outlier. I mean, wild card because we don't know yet. They haven't given their results yet. Normally, Berkeley usually does some interesting things. Last year, we saw kids not getting into UCI sometimes, not getting into San Diego sometimes, and getting into Berkeley. So there were a lot of kind of interesting things with Berkeley last year. I don't know if that was like a blip or a trend. So we're just keeping our eye on that. Obviously, our job is to kind of collect all this data at the end of the year as our students kind of move on to their life at college. They fill out a survey so we can see what courses they took. We know the essays they wrote. We know their activities. They tell us if they did a sport. We know if they went early decision, early action. We see what level of scholarships they got. Did they get, merit aid? We let you guys keep your financial aid stuff to yourselves, but need-based aid, I mean. But at the end of the day, we get a really clear snapshot of how our students are doing in the grand scheme of things. And then we take that information and we adjust our blue list to reflect those numbers, which we'll talk about in a moment. I am going to jump into the Golden Triangle, but does anyone have any questions about state of admissions based on anything that I just said just now? That might be, well, I can take a sip of my tea. Delicious. It's coconut cream, a little bit of honey. All right, guys. So let's jump into the Golden Triangle because I think honestly, a lot of families out there come to us early, and the two things they want to know is, are we taking the right classes? And am I doing enough outside of school? And should I be doing different things outside of school? I guess that's three things. And a lot of times we really say it's where you are in the process because we have some families that are incoming freshmen and they already think they need to know what type of engineering they're doing, or they already need to know what they're going to specialize in med school. And we're like, come on, you're in ninth grade. You probably will change. Things are going to go, left and right, and you will evolve as time goes. And that's what high school is for, is to kind of, experiment and see where you are. I always talk about my student, young man said he wanted to be a nurse. And he actually, I'll kind of even bring this up real quick because I think it will kind of help. So this is the portal, just so I can kind of introduce this. All of our students use the portal. We have the academics, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I won't go through all the tabs, but here I go to essays. We have our samples. These are the UC PIQs that I'll bring up just quickly. So the PIQs are just short essays that students have to write 4 of them out of a total of 8 prompts. And this was a student, let me see, I think it's prompt number 7. Where are you? Yeah. So this kid here, he told me when he first started, for sure, he was going to be a nurse. And I was like, all right. And then he did this internship or shadowing, we're going to call it. And then he came back. He's like, I don't want to be a nurse. That was horrible. And but that you know, sometimes checking things off your list are as important as, you know, keeping things on. But this is what he wrote. I never thought I would appreciate the opportunity to help someone clean up their own vomit, but while I was volunteering at Little Company of Mary's Hospital in Torrance, I would often help discharge people who were recently very ill or recovering from surgery. One elderly man stands out in particular. As I approached him and his wife with my best smile, I saw he wasn't doing very well. We only took about 10 steps before he sat down in a chair and started vomiting. As his wife began to panic, he continued to apologize unnecessarily. As quickly as I could, I helped clean up and assure them both that everything was going to be okay. As his nausea passed and we made it out to the car, both of them thanked me in a way that has permanently changed how I view helping others. 2 years ago, when I first began volunteering at the hospital, I had ambitions to work in the medical field. Although my interests have strayed from that path, I do not regret my time pursuing medicine. Not only did it allow me to see and experience a world I was curious about, but it also taught me how to be a more empathetic person. Every patient I discharged was going through something unique and deeply personal. Wheeling a new mother to her car with a sleeping baby is a much different feeling than wheeling someone who just finished a round of chemotherapy. I learned that sometimes it's less important to smile and offer small talk than it is to listen or give someone peace and space. While I may not wear medical scrubs in my future, I will always appreciate the opportunity I had to help members of my community. By seeing patients at the high and low points of their lives, I feel like I've gained even more than I have given. If nothing else, my hundreds of hours in the hospital have encouraged me to be a better friend, family member, and contributor to society. So, you know, and I'm going to go back into that in a second. This new Zoom format is still driving me crazy. But what that shows about that student is more than just his choice of majors. It shows that he's a good human being. It shows that he's taking experiences and he's getting something from it. It shows that he's probably going to make a good roommate because he's an empathetic person. These are all things that we kind of talk about. Abigail, who's an essay specialist, quite the, you know, quite the star. Um, Abigail, when you are working with a student and you are kind of thinking about their intersection of, I'm going to throw you a tricky one, their intersection of their courses, their activities, and their, you know, majors. How are you feeling like that kind of weaves into the essay process in particular, you know, as they're going through and they're kind of showing who they are?
So it's funny because I use this exact essay as an example to sometimes convince students uh that a topic that they have kind of written off as like, oh well, I don't do that anymore, you know.
Mhm.
That's not something I'm interested in anymore, so I shouldn't be writing about it. I use this essay as an example to, you know, help them broaden their thinking because, you know, for example, maybe a student played a sport freshman, sophomore, junior year. They didn't continue it into senior year. Oh, I don't want to call attention to that. That like I gave up on it. You know, I don't want to. And well, that's not the story that we're going to tell. We're going to tell the story about how, you know, you built a family within, you know, within your team, and you know the lessons of support and respect that you learned from there, you know. So I think that where you started this, Scott, was like, oh, like, am I doing the right activities? Do I need to change my activities? I think that the better question is, you know, are you being honest with yourself about the things that you care about and what you're interested in? And as long as those things are true, then we can, you know, we can figure out what story to tell in the essay, even if it's something that is like, oh, I stopped playing volleyball because I was so interested in molecular biology and I knew I wouldn't have the, you know, the capacity to take AP bio if I kept playing volleyball, you know, so I changed my priorities. Okay, we can tell that story. That's a totally valid story.
Absolutely. It even sounds a little bit like the Dear Basketball essay.
It kind of
Yeah,
does.
yeah. We have an essay where a girl writes a breakup letter to basketball because she falls in love with biology. And, you know, it's very much exactly what Abigail is talking about. And um, Abigail's statements are reminiscent of our old mantra of, you know, an authentic applicant always does better than a fabricated applicant. A fabricated applicant is the one where the parents think that there's like almost like a sushi menu of check boxes that you got to do. Like I got to do 4 years of a sport, I got to do 4 years of this, I got to do 4 years of that. I got to get this award, I got to do that, I got to get my CSF, I get my seal by literacy, and they do all that That's good. And that's going to be your kind of basic, your, RDA requirement of basic nutritional value. But the applications that really kind of pop over, and I think that everyone is on this call because they want those applications. They're looking for the way to kind of sneak into schools they wouldn't ordinarily be able to get into, or get the merit scholarship that other kids with the same numbers, are getting, and they want to get it for themselves. So I said that wrong. They want to beat out other people with the same numbers to get the scholarship, is what I meant. And by the way, merit scholarships are huge, everybody. I know that everyone always thinks about, just getting into schools. We really encourage our families to really pay attention to, I'll just bring up the blue list again. When our families will build a list on our platform, they will put in their GPAs, and it will kind of reflect their chances of getting in. This is just a random student with random GPA, but we'll pretty much tell this student that these schools down here in the yellow and green are quite often going to be incentivizing him and throwing money at him or her. And so some families will really kind of shorten their reds, like their red schools, because they're like, yeah, it'd be great to get into some of these schools, but we don't want to be paying, full price tag. We'd rather collect a bunch of merit aid. And we see students that make what we call a pear-shaped list, where the bottom of the list is, green goes all the way up to here, because they're just going to be kind of sorting through merit offers when the time comes. So we do really encourage that. I'm going to go back over to my portal for a second and go back to academics and talk about the first part of the triangle that everyone thinks about, which is making a good course load. We have a couple of basic best practice rules. One is that protect your cores. Your core classes, think A through G, are your most important, even outside the UCs. The UCs give us a very convenient way to think about them in A through G. And you can always go in the portal and, click this. I'll go to a school, and, I can look at all my A through Gs, B is my English courses. And we know a couple of things. We know if students kind of start to shortcut their cores. For example, we have students all the time that be like, I really don't want to take a math my senior year. I really don't want to take a science my senior year. Simple rules: 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, three of a social science, three or four of a social science, and 3 or 4 of a foreign language. Essentially, the UCs give us a recommended and required. And so often our families will say to us, well, the UCs only require 2 years of a math. I'm like, good luck. Like, I'm not trying to be, mean or anything, but that's not going to cut it. The UCs are giving you a very, basic, lower water line, but you have to be getting above that. And that goes for all the schools. So when students start to do things like they think they're being kind of creative, and they're like, I'm going to take 7 sciences and, only, 2 social sciences. Even if we're talking a school like MIT or Caltech or Harvey Mudd or RPI or whatever it's going to be, those schools want to see more well-rounded students. So make sure you take 4 years of science, 4 years of English, 4 years of math. Social science and foreign language are a little bit different depending on the student, but usually, 3 for social science at a minimum, and 3 for foreign language as a minimum. A lot of our PV high students, for some reason, are told by their counseling department that they need to take 4 years of a foreign language, and that's not true. We will talk to the families and we'll say to the student, maybe it's best for you to, do you want to do Spanish 4 or AP Spanish, or would you rather do AP Psych? And so you get into these situations where students will start to make decisions at that point. Some students use their summers as ways to do enrichment programs that can really like point towards their majors, like taking an intro to business, or maybe knocking out a course that is an A through G, like an art requirement or a history or whatever you don't love. Your schools all have different rules. Some schools will say you can't take it out of our circuit unless, we don't offer it. Like you want to take marine bio and we don't offer that, or something like that. But most schools are pretty amenable to you taking some summer courses that will kind of just help you have a more nutrient dense course load during the year. And what is, the truth? How many APs do you need? How many honors do you need? I think that, different families and different, cultures and schools, school cultures go about this differently. Costa has a maximum number of APs you can take. Peninsula students take as many as they possibly can. And, some schools try to find a balance of, here or there. Our thing is always going to be A's before APs. If you start stacking APs just to get APs on your course load, what you're going to start to find is, well, if you stack them up and you still maintain all the A's, great. But if you start putting APs and then you start showing weaknesses because you took a lot of students in junior year are encouraged to take AP Chem by their sophomore year chemistry teachers, and that like happens all the time. And students like, I don't know why I took it. My teacher told me I should. Just make sure that you are taking APs that you feel confident in. And if your school year starts out and it doesn't feel like the right fit, you get out of it as soon as possible. When we do, course planning with families, and they're about to head into the year, we use the term, be a ninja. So if you don't like AP Bio in that first week and you're already feeling it's bad, and this goes for seniors heading into their senior year as well, no matter what their courses are, always be ready to get out of a course, scale down, or move out if you think it's going to be a problem. We see this the most first semester junior year because students will come out of sophomore year and they look at all the AP opportunities they have as juniors and they're like, loaded up, I want to get into Stanford. And then they load it up. And then what happens is, the straw breaks the camel's back and they start to pop the first B's. They've heard, plenty of students get B's, before them, but this is a student who's like driven to do this. And then what happens is they get all these B's and their GPA might still look good numerically. It might still say a 4.4 or 4.2 or whatever it might be. But another student who took a slimmer load also has a 4.2, maybe only one AP or two APs with a 4.4. And that student's going to go further because they haven't shown their weakness yet. Again, there's a balance between, pushing yourself for rigor and being successful with the load you choose. But colleges generally are not fans of students that overwhelm themselves for the sake of trying to just, keep up with the Joneses. Matter of fact, colleges like to see the concept of balance played out. If you have a bad semester, you have the opportunity on your application to write about it, about what happened. My additional information, this went wrong. I'm going to, I'm going to reduce my APUSH to regular US history. I'm going to write about it on my application. Colleges don't see that as a negative. Every year we have, admissions officer working, with us. We've had USC, we've had Wake Forest this past year. They work on our team and they always say the same thing. They like to see students that can actually manage themselves because when they come to college, like first semester freshman year, that is when students usually overwhelm themselves. They're in a new place, new location, and most students, that's when the highest number of students go on academic probation. Colleges don't want that. They want you coming. They want you to be retained as a freshman. They want you to be successful. They want you to have an inner understanding of what your own balance and your own thresholds are. So we try to encourage our families to think in a more balanced way. Then once they kind of, once you build out your course load, and as we always like to do, we like to talk to students before they go in and talk to their counselors. So we can kind of just talk with the family and just have a big picture. Then we will quite often, as we are talking about courses, jump over to the activities because the activities and the courses are 2 points of the triangle that are going to vector towards your major most of the time. And we call this a breadcrumb trail. Like what things have you done and left in the past? And then the college can look at that. These activities here, this is just a student put a bunch of different things here. The Common App will allow you to have 10 activities. The UC app will let you have up to 20. Students will do what we call a hierarchy. They will move their things around depending on what's most important to them. Then they will write, let me try to find one that has a description. They'll write descriptions. The Common App has a shorter character length. The UC app has a longer one. You can go up to 350. So this student will, do a brainstorm. Then, we usually have our students as they go through the year keeping notes here. And then once they get to application season, then they can start to fill out the UC and the Common App activities. Activity descriptions are probably one of the most underrated parts of the application. Everyone always thinks about grades. Everyone always thinks about test scores. They usually don't think about activity descriptions. Activity descriptions can either be flat and boring, or they can pop and have personality. Every part of the application that is personality, you are benefiting yourself. The UCs will tell people, we don't really care about creativity on the application. Everything that we've seen is the complete opposite of that. The UCs love when applications feel like they're alive and you can feel a human being behind it. So our students will rewrite their activity descriptions over and over again until they like exfoliate it to the most lively, dynamic version of themselves. And then we'll go to majors, and then we'll talk to students about, the potential majors, and we'll kind of take them on a tour of all the different majors. We'll say like, well, what kind of, engineering do you like? And we go through all of them. We add all those into the potential majors. Then we'll have students kind of create their basics. What do they care about? Like, I want to be close to home, mom and dad, or whatever, they are far from home, whatever it is. But they create this and then they write their own specifics, here, and they add them in. And when they do that, this kind of creates their world of their college that they're thinking of. And then what we do with students is once we shape their world with them, if this was for Abigail, we would call this Abigail University that she is designing here. And then once we get through that, we will then take the student and then we will bring them in, and then we'll talk about like, all right, what kind of, what do you care about? You want to be near, places without rain or with rain? Do you want to be, places with like snow, and you can kind of click all your places that have snow and, etc. Michigan, Wisconsin. And then they'll go to over here. They'll kind of pick majors, etc. They'll pick vibe tags. They will save their searches, and then they will search. And we built this thing, so we know this thing inside and out. We've learned a lot about the colleges. As we, tour the schools, we constantly learn more and more about the schools, whether we are building the playlists. We have 10,000 videos here, dropping on Google Earth. If we're doing the politics, where you can go in, and that should have a leaning, but I'll tell you, like this, everything about the state's main issues. You can go here to your vibe tags, common overlaps. We'll tap that. Then here you can learn a lot about the school, their admission standards, how competitive they are, what their applications require. You can demonstrate interest super quickly. And we would recommend doing that. You can jump in and out of course catalogs, see what each, program, let's jump into Swahili. We jump into Swahili, see what the courses are there. And a lot of our students will learn about majors through course catalogs. Too many students will jump in and think that the best way to learn about the major is by kind of like going on Google and saying, what kind of jobs, or if I like video games, what kind of job can I get and how much money can I make? And that's a very simple way of doing things, but a lot of times those answers are a little shallow. When you actually start taking students window shopping through course catalogs, you see their eyes light up. They're like, oh, I really love stuff about genetics. I didn't know. Oh, that's super cool. Oh, I love stuff about AI. And it also has psychology, cognitive science. Oh, that's cool. And you see students kind of changing. I've seen a student change their major choice 3 times within a college list building, go from chemistry to chemical engineering to material science, or from, uh, you know, environmental studies or environmental science, environmental studies to public policy. So you will see students kind of changing, and a lot of students will not be applying to all the schools with the same major. For example, this student here that I was just showing, with the list. Let's go up to his or her list here. This student here may, depending on how strong the breadcrumb trail is, and the breadcrumb trail, remember, is your courses and your activities. If they all point towards an impacted major like engineering, then the student, it might be inescapable. They might apply to like Abigail. You had a student named Sam recently, who was all about engineering, and I think he went all schools engineering and didn't kind of slice and dice it, right?
The only difference was that there were most schools he applied mechanical engineering, and I think 3 schools he applied computer engineering. That was
Right.
the only difference.
Yeah, very, very, very slight. But there will be some students who feel like they're like these schools are red for him or her, and they'll be like engineering. I don't even know if I want engineering. I think I do, but they might apply to physics at these schools, which is, an easier level of entrance. We'll look sometimes at the schools. We can look at the competitive level here that we've kind of broken down, highly competitive, moderately competitive. But then also we'll go here and we'll look at the openings per major, and we'll look at for this case we're talking about engineering. uh the school doesn't have very many engineering options, but we might look at the total spaces, and we'll have to think about like mechanical has the most spaces, but mechanical is also probably 3 times as popular as computer engineering. So it kind of like you got to kind of like weigh that stuff in. But to think about majors isn't usually just like I'm going to go with business and that's it, because some schools are going to have business majors, some schools are going to have finance majors, some schools will have a business major with a finance concentration. So we just try to bring students through all of that. We try to educate them as they're going, and then eventually they will kind of come to a conclusion that they're going to plant their flag in this major at that school. And when our students are applying, they use these app trackers where they can, open it up, and they'll list the major that they have here. This is great. We haven't used this yet. This is just built for the class that's coming in. Our seniors are using this to track their acceptances, which is nice. But this is nice because students can put their majors, they can kind of, like, let me just say here, I'll start another school, Berkeley. I'll go here and I'll say this is on the UC app. I'm gonna do regular decision. The deadline is November 30th. It'll go back in time. And then I created an account and I have rough draft my activities. So I'm keeping them in my portal. And if I close this, this will then be orange, and it will go in deadline order. I'm sorry, I should have filled this out, but the soonest ones will be at the top, and then it'll go down. So let's keep really easy, at a glance understanding of where you are in your applications, what has been submitted, what needs to be submitted. Have you not started yet? Are you partly done? Are you mostly done? Is it completed? And is it submitted? Once it's submitted, students' applications will then move over to the status tracker. And this is where our seniors are right now. They will say like, I'm submitted. Let me put the student on the wait list. They're on the wait list. Let me close that and open it up again. So now I know I'm on the wait list. It's orange. I will drop my portal in here. I'll keep notes here. So our students are already using this to kind of keep the chaos of post-application submission in one orderly place. And if they need to go back and find something about the school, they open this up and they just dive in here. And then, yeah, so I'm jumping all around because I know time always goes fast in these open houses. I know. But I did jump into kind of these guys here. That was a quick overview. There's so much more. We could do 4 hours just on the Golden Triangle alone. But because I do know there are a lot of families that are thinking about testing, I do want to jump in and just quickly talk about testing. So ACT, SAT, we have, as I mentioned, the vast majority of schools are test optional. You have some schools that are test blind, like the UCs, a couple of all the Cal States, University of San Diego, a couple of the Washington schools and Oregon schools, but most schools are test optional. So the question is, when is it wise to test and when is it wise to not test? Well, if I have a let's say I have a 3.9 GPA and my test score is coming in a lot lower than that. I'm coming in, I'll say around like 1,000 on the SAT, or, like 16 or 17 on the ACT. I might tell that student, save your energy, focus on other things, focus on your activities. my nephew, who's a senior right now, is actually a very accomplished YouTuber. And he's like, Uncle Scott, should I take the ACT or SAT? The first thing I told him to do is what we tell all of our Blue trainers to do is take diagnostics. Take an ACT and an SAT abbreviated exam. That's the PSAT versus the plan. They take those, they get the scores, they look at which one they're better at. They either decide that score that they're better at is worth continuing and going forward on, or they decide that neither score is enough to warrant them putting energy into it. My nephew's GPA was strong. He looked at his test scores. He's like, yeah, I know I could get that up. I know I could put a lot of time and energy into it. And then he finally said, is it worth it? And I looked at him and I said, if you don't test, will you be able to do anything with that time that can move the needle for you in another way? He's like, oh yeah, I'm a consultant for 3 other YouTube sites. I could do so much stuff. And he did that, and to great success, lots of merit scholarships coming his way. A lot of it was because schools are impressed by a student who has 100,000 followers, So, but he actually built that up over a lot of his junior year. Like he was working at that like a full-time job. Another student, on the other hand, may have a very good GPA and come in with an SAT score, an ACT score that's commensurate with their GPA. And they want to be competitive to those schools that are like UT Austin, that are shifting their focus more. And let's be honest, the schools that are more competitive, the schools that are, the Ivies, the sub Ivies, like the Middleburys and the Tufts and the Northwesterns, and the big public schools that are competitive, like University of Michigan, UVA, UNC, U Georgia, UT, the UCs, well, not the UCs, they are going to need more data points to sift through. That means AP scores. That means ACT, SAT scores. So if you are going for those and you do have the ability to, have a good score, then you go for it. We usually have our students take tests between 2 and 4 times. One time, if you luck out, you're one of those people that knocks it out of the park the first time, great. Most of our students go in at least a second time. If you take a test and you don't do well, is that okay? Absolutely. You will only be reporting the scores you want to report. On every single time when you are filling out an application, let's just open up the Common App because the UCs don't have it. If you don't know what the Common App is, it applies to like 500 schools across the nation. It will be the most used app other than the UC or the Cal State app by far. So if I end up having my list of colleges here, this student has all these, schools that they're applying to. And when they are checking out, when they go to the questions, because each school you will decide if you are going to, you will go through and you answer all the questions. Let me see if it has it here. I don't want to take my time and try to find it, but everyone's different. But there's usually a spot that will ask you, are you submitting your ACT or SAT as part of your at Columbia application? So I can say no, even though for the other schools, I will be. And our students will quite often go to their blue list, and they will look at the schools that they're applying to, and they'll say University of Michigan, SAT score. Do I have these numbers? These are the center 50th percentile that we're working with. And if a student is below these numbers here, we would say don't submit that score. That's kind of our like standoff. Matter of fact, you really want to be above the center between these two scores, because if this is a center 50th percentile, meaning you have 25% below and 25% above, you kind of want to be above the median. So we are okay if a student submits like a 670 and a 680, but we know that's not really going to be helping them. It's not necessarily going to be dragging them down, but this becomes something that families will think about in the fall. They will quite often be, asking us, should we be submitting scores or should we be holding off on scores? And quite often it's like that school, yes, that school, no, all those schools, yes, that school is mandatory, so yes. And then you kind of will, go out feeling confident that you only sent your best scores and you only sent it to the schools that you think it's going to help you. Quick note on that, if any were juniors or you're soon to be sophomores, I'm sorry, sophomore soon to be juniors, the first time you apply to a school, sorry, first time you take the ACT or SAT, they're going to ask you if you want your scores sent out to schools. We always tell families not to have your scores sent out until you know what they are. Because too often students just go in blind. They're like, oh, I can send it to like this school, that school, that school. And their first test is what we call the first pancake test. First pancake always stinks, no matter how good the batter is, no matter how, hot the pan is. So we encourage families not to, send scores until they can see them. And then you can, decide then. The ACT is changing. I know there's so many things to talk about. The SAT just changed last year to all digital. The ACT in September is going to change to a new format. It's going to be shorter, and they're going to be offering it in digital or paper. We've had a chance to look at the new ACT. The material feels the same overall, but it does have some differences that the science section is optional and the reading sections are like more condensed now. So it's going to be, I don't want to say an easier test, but it's definitely going to be a shorter an exam that students can wrap their brains around. A lot of our families will start prepping over the summer between sophomore and junior year to get what we call a jump start. And then they jump into the school year. Let me just kind of do that real quick. Students will, a lot of times, like for the ACT, SAT, and I don't know what all you guys do. All you guys say that they all go for the SAT. A lot of students don't even like measure up the ACT. They're just like, oh, I heard the school, the SAT is the way to go. And we really encourage families to make sure you measure twice before you go in and take a test. So once you know which test you're better at, then you're going to set up a timeline. Most of our students do not take their first real ACT or SAT until December. And a lot of students, that's still early. So they may do some jumpstart prep, meaning just get their basics down, but then they get their school year started. Students tend to be better testers a little bit later. Yeah, you might have a student that's a little bit different, and you call us precocious testers, and they can test early. But most students will want to, get a little bit more AP Lang under their belt, so they get better at reading. Get a little bit more pre-calc under their belt, so they get better at math, or trig, which is on the ACT, on the SAT and the ACT. And these scores here, historically before it went test optional, because Blue Train started out as a testing company, back in 2001. And then, since then, we've kind of, been testing every single year. We've seen how students have gone from pre-COVID, post-COVID, test mandatory, test optional. And students these days are much more, I'm just going to get it over with. And the truth of the fact is that that's not a thing. You don't just get it over with. You have to really, if you really want your top score, you really need to be thinking this as a process. Be prepared to take it more than once. Be prepared to have a shaky section and then hopefully go in again and take it again and raise that section. Another thing you'll see what schools have are what are called super scores. A super score means the school here, which is Michigan, does not super score. The super score, if you take the test 3 times, allows you to take the highest, math from one day and the highest English reading writing from another day and combine those for what we call a super score. Some schools allow it, some schools don't. You can always check to find out if they do. All schools will see it. And I think it's kind of like a jury. They can't unsee it. Like you can't unring a bell. So I do think even a good super score is schools do notice it, even if the school says they don't use it for their evaluation purposes. What am I trying to hit here before? I'm gonna ask Trishy to give some things away, and then I'm gonna go into how the token system works. So Trishy is going to, first of all, we're gonna give everybody here a 1-month subscription to the Blue List. You will be able to go to the bluelist.com, and we'll send this out in the recording. And you just need to put 1 month. You have to select one here. I'll do it. I'll do it for you guys. And Trishy, you are going to be pulling out a free summer workshop for a family right now. And Connie, wait, just let me just do this quickly. So You guys are going to get to this page here. You're going to go to purchase. You're going to select $20. You're going to fill out your name and stuff like that. And then when you create an account, it's going to give you the option to put in a code, and that's going to be spring space open. And again, we'll send this out in the recording tomorrow. But if you want to jump on that tonight, you're welcome to log into your account. That will be for 1 month from the time you start, and then it'll go for 1 month and then it will expire. Obviously, our clients, we suck you in. Our clients get to have the blue list the entire time they're working with us if they're doing one-on-one. And then they will also have access to their portal. Obviously, also summer workshops, we have bundles that you can do it as well, that you can get the blue list and the portal as well. But I'll go over that in a second more when I talk more about Blue Train. Trishy, what do you got up there in the corner? Yeah, like look at Trisha. Like, who do you got?
Okay, so we have the winner of a free summer workshop. This is Michelle Childs. Michelle,
Michelle.
woohoo!
Michelle, come on down. Where are you, Michelle? Is she on the phone? Is she on here? Oh, there she is. Yeah, so
She's
she's still
on
here.
here. So I'm
Good.
just gonna send in the chat to get the student name in the email so we can make sure that we get that to you.
And just to be clear, what Michelle just won, because everything's gone so fast. On one of the things that we do in addition to one-on-one, which I'll explain more in a second, is we do summer workshops, and our families get a lot of bang for their buck and very, very helpful. They do, the personal statement. Let me close those up again because it threw me off. Personal statement, UCPIQs, get the students to understand what the essays are. We do a lot of free writing, brainstorming. They usually come out with a good idea of what they might write about. Then we do the Common App, UC app, writing labs, which are 3-hour labs where you work by yourself and then you meet with a specialist for a total of an hour out of the 3 hours. App polish labs. You can go through the website and look at the descriptions, but workshops are great. We've been doing them for like 15 years. They're always very popular. A lot of them fill up and sell out. But, congratulations to Michelle and the Child's family for a summer workshop. And now we're going to give out another summer workshop. Trishy.
All right. I want to look, not cheating.
Cheater. You gonna give it to
Okay.
Michelle again?
Suzanne Whitney.
Suzanne Whitney. Come on
Suzanne
down.
Whitney.
Suzanne Whitney. Is she here still?
Oh, did she leave?
If
She
somebody
doesn't get it.
leaves,
Did she
someone else gets her
leave?
spot.
Oh, she left. Okay.
All right, I'll give another one.
Key.
Who?
Key.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A returning family.
Yeah.
It just like Trisha will get your email. We'll do that. And then Trisha, I'm going to do one last one. I'm going to do
Okay.
a free on track. This will be a one-on-one, college counseling hour with one of our counselors. And who is the winner of an on track?
Okay, let's do it. This is a good one.
This is a good one.
Okay. Perfect. I have you in our system, Emily. Let me make sure she's still on here. She left.
Oh, you almost want to say their name to let them know what they missed when they just like tease them. Missing $240
I know.
on track.
Okay, well, Joy Lona.
Joy. Look, Joy too. Look at that. Joy was on the camera. Like it all happens. Look at that. It all comes together.
Yeah.
And I think I have you in the system, Joy, so
Yeah,
you're good. We'll follow up with you.
Carla. The first name might be Carla.
Okay.
But it's Carla Joy.
Okay, perfect. I will
Awesome.
follow up with you.
Awesome. Congratulations, everybody. So I'm going to make this super quick. Some of you guys, because we recognize your lovely faces, are return families, so you know how this works. For others, it's a brand new world and they're wondering why tokens and what is it all about? Can't you guys just do hours? Can you just give us a bundle? I'm just going to look you all in the eye and talk straight to you guys for a second. We've been doing this for a while, and one of the things that we realize is that there are a couple of different ways to charge families for this. There is the way that some companies do it, where I'm not going to mention any names, but they will charge a big chunk of money, in a lot of cases, 2.5 times as much as our biggest package. And then they will cap the number of colleges you can apply to. Like, we will take care of 9 schools for you and we'll do everything, no matter what they are. Because some schools like Stanford have 8 essays and other schools like Arizona have 0. So it matters, the level of schools that you're applying to, how much, effort it's probably going to take. Also, are you going to be doing merit scholarships? Are you going to be spending a lot of time on your supplemental essays because you have a very unique major that requires a lot more sophisticated digging into the websites and understanding, the co-curricular clubs at the school and all the labs and all the things that students can do. So we really okay, so that's the first one, capping. The other way is to do it by hours. That's the way we used to do it. Some of the OGBTs here know that we used to kind of like sell package hours of like 20 hours, 18 hours. The problem with that is different services, our counselors get different rates and they cost us different. Like, to build the Blue List costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of energy and time to keep that up. To get a counselor ready to do, our counselors that do college list building have been with us for at least 8 years. So they really know their stuff. So when you are, when you're doing college list building, it's at a higher premium. So what we do is we don't just say college list building is the same as academic tutoring. Those 2 hours are completely different, because we can have lots of different people teach AP Bio, but we don't have as many people to do college list building, at least not to the level that we want to do it. We want to be giving you guys top quality service. So we created the token system, which allows you to buy a bulk of tokens, and then you can use those tokens in a way that is very specific to your process. So all the ways that your tokens can be used, as you see here, all the on tracks, these are basically just counseling, academic planning, activity shaping. You can read the descriptions if you go through them. But these are fluid, all within a session. So if you do an on track, you can do a little bit of major exploration, a little bit of academic planning. So we don't really kind of draw divisions in on tracks. We just list all the things we do in on track so the families know everything that can be done. The reality is, we get in there with you and we call it chasing minutes. We're going to do everything we can to use those hours as productively as possible to move you and your family forward and to help your student. And essay assistance is obviously these two here. Actually, I'll probably say our biggest thing that our students do overall, if we looked at it all the hours, is essay assistance. Essay assistance is something that I think students really appreciate. They appreciate test prep because they want to do better on the test, but they really appreciate essay assistance because not only is it something that's going to help them do better with their application, results, admissions results, but a lot of times, I do believe, and I would, have Abigail talk about it, but I know we're kind of running late on time, so I'm trying to squeeze a lot of minutes in here. Time going fast. We actually think that we're actually improving students' writing, and we're not just doing essays. Like, we're trying to teach them structure. We're trying to teach them how to get the reader in and out of paragraphs. We're teaching them to be taking that 5-paragraph essay they learned in high school and hitting it with a sledgehammer, and like not doing that thesis, topic, sentence, summary, upside down intro. That stuff doesn't work with colleges. Colleges want to feel the human being. Our essay specialists are like Abigail and I, professional screenwriters. They are podcasters. They are, novelists. They're all sorts of storytellers. And that's one of the reasons that we kind of bring those people in, because English teachers are fine for making red marks on a paper, but we really want to use our staff to help bring the students out of themselves. And the students like that deep digging. They like feeling like that they're being seen. They like developing their voice. So, I think essay assistance is huge and underrated. Not only that, it's the one thing that is completely in your control. You're not in control of your grades, your teacher, the material. You're not in control of your test scores as much as you try to be, but you are in control of your essay. You can refine it until you feel like it's where it should be. And essays, there are a lot of them. Our students I won't go to the portal, but you can bring up all the different supplemental prompts. There's so many different questions. So families will use those tokens over the course of, however many years that they're going to be using it. Some families just come to us senior summer, jump in and just get their apps and essays done. Other families will start with us in freshman year and do like 2 on tracks for course and activities a year, and they just kind of keep moving through. Some families, well, we always suggest you do the token quiz. We're going to be changing this in the next month, so the quiz will look a little bit easier and less confusing. But what you will do is you will go through all this and you will get a number of tokens, and then you will be able to go to the package options on the next page, and you'll be able to see the different size packages that you have for each token amount. As you're looking at this, one of the things you'll realize is that the bigger package you get, there's no doubt, and don't throw up when you see this PDF because it is kind of confusing and scary, but you will see hourly rates are, they're not the cheapest. And then for each size package, they end up going down quite a bit. You're talking 120 versus 72, so families that do buy bigger packages and think ahead do save a lot of money. The other thing that we just started recently, because we noticed families were getting nervous about which size package to buy, and we don't want families nervous. Like, we're 100% referrals. Like, we want you to buy a package, feel good about it, get everything you got out of it, and then tell your friends how great it was. Like, we used all the need. So now if you buy a package that's too big and you don't use all your tokens, we'll just downgrade you, prorate it, and if there's a refund, we'll refund it. So you can always go the bigger package and then scale down if you don't think you need it. In more cases than not, it's the other way around. Families will try to go like, I'm going to try to squeeze everything, even though they see the token estimate is like 500 tokens, they'll go through and they'll be like, we're going to try to do this with 200 tokens, and we're going to try this. And then they are worried, or not worried, but then they're like, well, now I want to kind of upgrade, and I could have done it cheaper if they just kind of started out bigger, and you don't have to pay all at once. You pay the first half. So you can literally think bigger and then scale down if you don't feel it without any risk. I do feel that families are one of two types. Some families are the more kind of economic efficiency oriented. So they're thinking, how can we do this with as few tokens as possible and still get our end result? And that's great. I totally get that. That might be me. I don't know. Then we have the families that are looking more for, like, they care about the efficiency, but they also really care about the comprehensive hand holding. So they want someone to like guide them through the entire journey. So families want that. They will select this, and they will have a counselor, like someone like Abigail or Avery or Matt or David or Celeste, and they will be your point person through the entire process. They may kind of like use other specialists to support you, but they're your go-to person. And they basically, you have their phone number, you have their email, and they'll guide you through everything. They will also protect your token use so that you're using it in a wise way. They will help you make sure that you're setting up all your appointments in a way that you get things done ahead of time. Obviously, the office, we're happy to do that too for people that are self-guided. You just send an email like, hey, how do I use this? But for families that really want that person they can hold hands with as they go through, the Blue Train Guided is something that that a lot of families are kind of opting for. Again, we try to give every option. We try to give the workshop option. We try to give an option where families can buy tokens and use some for workshops and some for one-on-one. And then there's families that want to do like a deluxe Blue Train Guided. It's still going to be like, literally go on and Google college prep companies. and check
I
them
thought you were
out.
about to name names, Scott.
Yeah, I was about to name names, but they're literally all over the place. I'm not even going to pick one. You can just Google and just ask AI the average cost of it, and you'll see, you know, for everything that we do. And I'm not even, everyone that knows me knows I'm not a good salesman. I'm a good college counselor, but I'm not a good salesman. But I will say, like, I have absolute faith in the quality of work that we do. I think that no company even comes close to what we've created in the Blue List. Like, not even online anywhere. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit cocky here, Abigail. I can see a little smile behind your hand, but you know how hard we worked on this. And the portal, everything we've done, we've just basically been streamlining to try to create something so that it makes your process easier. And this year, I'm really excited to bring the new seniors through the entire Blue List and through all the different portal and all the different abilities to move their activities and all the calendar and all the resources like this. After it would be a town hall, would go into the portal resources. So you have all your videos and you have everything you need. And we just keep building and building and building it. And now I'm going to ask you, Trishy, because you're talking to the families. Is there anything that I did not say that you'd want to add about families who are confused as they're kind of going through the registration process? Because I know that is where most people stare at the screen the longest and wonder what's going on.
I don't think you missed it, but I'll just double down on some points. One, if you're a freshman or sophomore family, we do recommend waiting until after sophomore year to take those diagnostic tests. And then, so you can request them from us for free, take those, and then you can schedule your free meet and greet. We open that up in June. Or if you're like, hey, we actually do want to talk about academic planning, we want to talk about activity shaping, we want a counseling session like now, then you can go to our website, click that Start Your Journey button, and then sign up for an On Track guidance session. And those are paid sessions, and you can schedule them out with one of the counselors if you're wanting more of that full guidance help. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, and we're gonna be done in here in 2 minutes, guys. But just to Trisha's point, if I go to the website and I see On Track, you can do it a la carte, like Trisha just said, or you can do the package. Some families might want to start On Track just to even see who we are, just to kind of like do an hour with us, just to see how it feels. And that's what I think a lot of families do when you have younger children. They just want to kind of get a sense of things. And then, you know, a lot of those families will then roll over into a package once they realize that they're going to start working with us, and then they want to save money in the long run. That's number one. Number two, once you are on board, anytime you want to do anything with us, you just go to the portal, you select whatever you need, and you just put it in and then submit the request, and then I don't want to say it's like ordering a pizza, but you basically are just kind of ordering the service, and then we connect you with someone. And our staff, as you can see, two of them here, and Laurel, who's absolutely amazing, is not here tonight. They're always making sure you guys are taken care of. And then our specialists, a lot of you guys have worked with them so far, the ones that, I can see here. They're all, like, I love them all. They're all really just like caring people, very talented. I am, the company's blessed to have so much talent under one roof, I do think. And they actually really enjoy you guys. I don't know why, but they do. No, they really enjoy you guys. And I think that that's what makes it all so fun, is so much of the college process has fangs. And I think that people are taught to be afraid of it. And they're taught, like by their neighbors, like, you have to do this or you have to do that. And everybody feels like they're not doing enough. And the students start to feel like they're never going to get anywhere. And they feel like they're not carrying enough of a load. And that's not mentally healthy. It's also not true. What we really try to do is, quote unquote, defang the process, really help people feel comfortable and confident by giving them like the support. And also, we know what we're doing. We've been through this. This is our 10,000th rodeo. So we've been around the block again and again, but our primary objective is still to make this a journey that when you get to the end of it, yeah, you have your college. Yeah, you're wearing your t-shirt of where you got into that you're super stoked on. Yeah, you have merit offers if your family was looking for that. But also, we want you to feel like the process was enjoyable. It was self-discovery. It was a time when you actually put your energy into something and you could actually see the results come out. Not everyone's going to get into every school, obviously. you know, and that's part of the process and that's part of the growth that comes along with this. But yeah, are there any questions? Dare I open up that can of worms right now? Does anyone have any questions as I am coming to a blathering end here? Sure, Meg.
Quick question. I know the old Blue List, you export to Google Sheet pretty early on and you manage things in Google Sheet. And I can go back and refer to my oldest like stuff later. I know now your Blue List has a lot more features still within the tool. Do you allow us to export it later, like so we can look back
You
and see
will
what we did?
still have, oh, it's not here, but as soon as I put the authentications here, you're going to have the same exact button you used to have. And you still will be able to export this to spreadsheets because you know why, Shermay? I was like, even though we're building this brand new thing, there's going to be some families that still want their spreadsheets. And so we kept it on there. And for people like you and a lot of our families really do like that spreadsheet because then they can tweak the spreadsheet, add fields in, do that. So yes, that will be there probably in the next week or so. But yes, we kept that function.
Thank you.
Joy, did you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I had a question about merit aid, and I just wanted to find out, like, what is the profile of a student that receives merit?
I'm sorry, what is the
Scholarship.
profile of a student what?
That receives merit scholarships?
Usually when a school thinks that that student is a kind of a get for that school, like they're above their SAT, ACT, or they're above their GPA, you know, we use what we call our red zone GPA to kind of establish, you know, difficulty. We don't believe in admissions percentages, even though we put that on here, because if some school says they have a 7% acceptance rate, I've been doing this a long time and I still don't even know what that means. Like 7% of who? Kids who have 3.0s, 7% of kids who have 5.0s. So we kind of created this red zone GPA. And when you start to get to points where, you know, some students will sneak some scholarships in these territories, but usually say like this student has a GPA of a 4.25, it looks like, just by the way it's breaking from there to there. That student will most likely be getting scholarships to a good number of these schools here. And then you can always go to the school. You know, we'll go down here to Oregon. And there's two places you can look. You can look here, which is the overview, and I'll tell you kind of like the general, you know, basics on what they offer. But then, you know, we also want families to be able to go straight to the school's page. And they will a lot of times, this one doesn't have it. I picked cost of attendance. I meant a scholarship page. Yeah. So then I'll go through here and if I click each of these, they'll tell me like quite often, you know, a 3.7 out of a 4.0. And a lot of scholarships, just so we know, are based on unweighted GPAs, not weighted. And that's another reason A's over APs sometimes, because the unweighted GPA is the important part. So to your question, Joy, it goes school to school. It's not like every school has the same bar. Schools' bars will change. And that's why, like, if your student has a GPA of a 3.5 and they're like, I'm not getting merit anywhere, I guess you will. Like, we can pick a handful of schools that you'll get merit aid for. If the family really wants that, then they go for it. There's also the WUI schools, you know, the Western Undergraduate Exchange schools. These are schools that, let's do this. Like, we have our list that we built. And for some reason, the internet today is driving me crazy. But these are these schools over here, which are the Western Undergraduate Exchange. And these are all schools that have their cheaper price tags for California residents. And there's all these, you know, whether it's scholarships or, you know, cohorts of schools like WUI, there's lots of different ways to kind of take the price tag down, because sticker price for schools is usually not what students are paying. People pay full sticker price if it's the best school they got into and the family is willing to go that way. But a lot of students will have had lower level schools throw money at them. And if they didn't, they probably didn't try to throw the net down low enough. A lot of students kind of look up and they go, I don't want that. And I go, well, your parents do. So let's get you some scholarships. And that's why, like, remember that thing where we were showing, the students basics and specifics about the school? One of them is affordability. We're always looking to see where that place is. And that's why it's good to have families, I know, on tracks, the parents, they're like, move affordability up. And we'll go that way. And then we're like, since we know affordability is a big thing for you, you don't have a 529 plan for your child, so your affordability is the main thing. Then we're like, let's make that spearhead the college list building process. And then we shape it to collect scholarships. And again, we can't guarantee it because some scholarships are discretionary. But at the same time, we can get a pretty good idea of what you'll be getting.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. Yes, Shimei.
So your merit scholarship sessions are focused on merit scholarships offered through the colleges, not like outside ones. Is that
There's
right?
both. We know the vast majority of scholarships come directly from the schools. So we tell students not to kind of like look past those for the outside private scholarships. We say, let's focus on all the schools' internal scholarship process first, see what we can do. And then a lot of the secondary scholarship run comes after students are accepted, and they will have options in their portal. Like if you go, and I know I'm running long here, guys, the hook's about to grab me, but like I'll just think of like for example, because I know students just finished this, like once you get accepted to Boulder, then you have these extra scholarships that you can apply to. A lot of schools have these. So you can then, submit. These were all due, or the ones that say ended, they all just closed up on March 15th. So students found out they were accepted in January and then had a couple of months to write these essays, go through, and, some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are specific, engineering, LGBTQ, Asia Pacific Islander, like they're all kind of different qualifications. And then you just kind of will do that. So the first thing is go early action, capture all the early action ones, then get accepted, and then apply for accepted student scholarships. And then the third stage, the third ring from that would be then to kind of venture out into the private territory land. And we do all of them with students and families. The vast majority of money comes from the direct application scholarships. And a lot of that comes from being early action and having a good application.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, guys. I think we're going to close it down for tonight. I want to thank you all for coming. And if you have any questions, let us know. If you want to set something up, just go to the website and fill out a Start Your Journey form. Otherwise, we wish you a good night and a happy college process. And keep us in your mind if you have any questions. Take care, everybody. Bye, guys.